The views and opinions expressed by this program's hosts, guests, listeners, and viewers are solely the views and opinions of the original source who expresses them. They do not necessarily represent the views and opinions of TV5 Network Incorporated, its subsidiaries and affiliates, and their respective stockholders, directors, officers, and employees.
Sounding off from Los Angeles, the undisputed king of podcasting, who's all about the good times, Mo Twister. Representing New York City, a social media monster and co-creator of the Not Bill Walton Twitter feed, Chris Savage. All the way from Sydney, Australia, a basketball media veteran and unapologetic cultural critic, Bradford Graham. Holding it down from Manila, a seasoned sportscaster with the studio skills to pay the bills, Gino Rufino. This is Full Court Report.
All right, welcome to the Full Court Report. It is a weekend edition of our show. We are four guys in four different cities talking about NBA hoops. My name is Mo. I'm in Los Angeles. That is Chris Savage in New York City. We have Brad Graham in Sydney, Australia. In studio is Gino Rufino, Metro Manila, Philippines. And guys, let's get to it. Chris, we go to you again, and you have first quarter duties with 12 minutes on the clock. Where are you taking us right now?
All right, fellas, let's talk about everyone's favorite Ninja Turtle, Russell Westbrook. Now, as we're taping the show, the Thunder are in Oakland to play the Golden State Warriors. Warriors are up by 10, 12 points. We expect them to be that good at home, even though the Thunder have been a very hot team. However, Russell Westbrook is having a sensational game. Actually, a better game than Steph to this point. Not that Steph is any slouch in this game, but Westbrook is going out there and killing it. Now, we speak about Westbrook pretty often on the show, but we don't necessarily dedicate a full quarter to him, whether it's due to the sensational season Steph is having, and rightfully so, he deserves all that credit, or the return of KD, coming back from an injury, or with his free agency status, plus how great he's playing. It could even be that we expect Russell Westbrook after last season to have this type of monster season. Just to throw out some stats very quickly, 24 points per game. That's sixth in the league. That's better than Anthony Davis, Paul George, and Jimmy Butler, all essentially primary scorers on their team. 10 assists per game, better than John Wall and Chris Paul, two guys who are really pass-first point guards. 7.6 rebounds a game is actually better than Chris Bosh and LeBron James. It's by far number one for all guards in the league. He's leading the league in steals. He has a 28.8 PER if you're into efficiency stats. Number two in the league, only behind Steph. So, guys, let's just talk about it right now. Let's talk about the guy who plays the game like caps locks, is always on. Let's speak about the greatness of Russell Westbrook.
Yeah, Chris, I'll just jump in here quickly and say that everyone sort of threw up a bit of a sort of stink, I guess, when, the ESPN rankings, which we'll get to a little later in the show, had sort of Russ already sort of, I think, in the top 50 or whatever the case may be. I mean, everybody's, really, really high on this guy's talent. And, he continues to sort of show us new ways to sort of play the point guard position. He's as fearless as we've ever seen. He's athletic as we've ever seen. And I really feel sorry for the generation that's got to come after us, because he's, showing us, ways to sort of take over a basketball game that we didn't think we would see beyond LeBron James. But he's really doing it at both ends of the floor. He's definitely the sort of spiritual leader of this Thunder team now. And, I think you can start talking about him as a top 3 MVP player. I mean, he's just putting in everything you could possibly want from an MVP. And in some ways, he is specifically better in performance than what Steph is. I mean, he's a better two-way player than Steph is.
Sure. And do you think maybe he's exciting to watch. He's dominant and stuff. But do you think people are just waiting for him to get hurt, as he seems to be getting hurt every single year? I know I brought this up about Anthony Davis. And I know, Chris, you said he's just going to be one of those guys, man, that every year gets hurt. Now, these are freak injuries. These are freak injuries with
Yeah, but Russ hurt his face and played through the mask and still got triple doubles.
And he took the mask off like he didn't even want to wear the mask.
I'm trying to give an explanation on why people are not losing their minds over Westbrook as they do other players. Is it a waiting game with Russell?
He's a polarizing figure. I mean, he's one of these guys that rubs people the wrong way because he's really, really blunt with the media. He doesn't sort of parade himself. I mean, people know him for his fashion now, so I think that's made him some endearing fans for a number of reasons. I think that, he appears on a number of sort of fashion blogs now, which is sort of curious and interesting. But I think the thing with Russ is is that he's just a no-nonsense guy from top to bottom. And those who seem to know him think that he's this really joking, jovial, fun, and friendly dude. But then when it comes to basketball, I can't believe I'm saying this, but he is seriously Mr. All Business. And
I believe you, man. I believe the thing about Russ is I don't think anyone goes out there thinking that he's a bad guy or something. They know he's a monster and he's all business on the court, but he does seem to be like one of these fun, kind of just really casual, cool guys off the court.
Mo, I mean, the off the court is one thing, but part of it is when he came into league or when he was starting to build, the Thunder were starting to build a team that was winning. They looked at KD as a supernatural talent, which he is, and even myself, I looked at Russell Westbrook took away from KD's game, but by maybe taking shots in fourth quarters when it should have been KD. He's turned my opinion, but maybe hasn't turned everyone's opinion that, to me, he is number one in 1A with KD, and you could even make the argument, and I'll try to make the argument, that he is more valuable of a player to this team. In a lot of ways he is. I think he showed it last year without KD in some ways. I mean, I would be fine with each of them. But I think in a lot of people's minds, people think KD is number one, Russ has to facilitate to him and defer to him when it counts. No, not anymore. People need to get over that, and I think that's in people's minds as well.
And Chris, you touched base on this. I think also part of it is because I just don't think he's as likable by everybody as Steph Curry is, and he's playing in a generation where Steph Curry is so dominant, and they play the same. They play the same spot. They play the point guard position. So I think that plays a factor into it because you have Curry there as kind of like your measuring stick of everything as far as performance, as far as fandom is concerned, and he's like the good guy for everybody. And then and that's one of the reasons why that Russ, I guess, doesn't get as much love and attention as Curry does, because Curry is one of those players that just I can't think of anybody that doesn't really like Steph Curry. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm.
No, that's definitely a good point. I think that's always a factor when you come to marketing superstars, and when the games are that close. Steph is the better player this year, so he does. But to me, it comes down to that whole KD thing versus Steph, KD versus Russ, and just this people's stigma. And KD is a more marketable player too, so that's maybe where it comes in line. But I'll ask you guys this straight up: if you had to start a team, and pretty much to start a team to win now, if you had to pick between Kevin Durant or Russell Westbrook, who would you pick?
Oh, that's a really good question. I don't know, man. I've always been such a Durant guy, but I think this year has really got me convinced that Russell Westbrook is the best player on the Thunder team. I'm still trying to think of why you guys are saying he doesn't get a lot of the fanfare. I think he gets a ton of fanfare and he gets a lot of love. But I would take Westbrook over Durant. Maybe Westbrook doesn't have the 3-point shot, and that's why not a lot of fanfare there. Maybe he leads the league in turnovers. That could be a problem. I'd like to also add to your stats, Chris, that Westbrook leads the league in steals. But I know that's not a big category for you. But anyway, again, to answer your question though, and your question only, I'm sorry. I think I'd take Westbrook now over Durant. Even though Durant is a bit more of the unique kind of player, tall guy who hit threes, shoot the ball well, block shots, and do all that good stuff. I think I like Westbrook's game.
Just the fact that you picked that shows how long Westbrook has come. And even if you pick Durant and had to think about it, that shows how long he's come. Because KD, to everyone's mind, was just the successor to LeBron James just a couple of years ago. He's number 2, so close to LeBron and getting there. Now we're talking about Westbrook might be better. What about you guys?
Because to start a team, and again, I'll get to you guys. Sorry about that, but it's just because I want Westbrook's aggression to rub off on everybody else on the team, and that's why I think that's going to get me to pick Russell over Kevin. And with your question of starting a team around one of these two guys.
Yep. And Brad called him the spiritual leader, and I agree with that in a lot of ways. Brad, Jinno, what about you?
Well, I think for me, I mean, if you're gonna choose between Russell Westbrook and Kevin Durant, it's gonna be a tough call. I do love the energy that Russell Westbrook brings, but I have to go with KD simply because I think there are more that you'll be able to find another point guard out there. As far as except for finding the 3 spot where Kevin Durant would fall under, it would be more difficult for me to find somebody with that caliber. But I'm not saying it's easy to find somebody of the same caliber as Westbrook, but you can kind of find a point guard out there probably better than you would a small forward or whatever position KD plays, since we don't have positions anymore in basketball.
Right, exactly. We definitely don't have one for Westbrook. Yeah. So that's another part of it too. Brad, what about you?
This is an insane conversation. I can't believe you're dismissing an MVP who just destroyed the league 18 months ago. I mean,
I knew this was coming.
This is just nuts. I'm not even going to contribute.
Brad,
to
Brad, I don't see. You're a negative person, Brad, because you're a negative person, Brad, and I'll tell you why. He didn't badmouth Kevin Durant. He just said, "Who would you want from the two?" Still praising Kevin Durant's amazing game.
No, this is exactly why he's not getting the credit. Mo, you said, "Oh, I don't think that he's not getting the credit." This is exactly what I'm talking about. People like Brad who won't accept that they're near the level of each other.
No, I think
and Brad thinks it is an insult to Durant. It's not.
I'm insulting Kevin Durant somehow. No, it's 1 and 1A at worst.
The beautiful thing here is that we don't have to pick. They get to play teammates, and they get to.
That's right.
All that sort of
wow.
stuff.
Who's on the fence?
But I will add this. I think that Kevin Durant will be has shown that he's the better player come crunch time. I think he's shown that when it comes to guiding a team to a championship, I think he plays at a level that's a little bit above Russ. I think that his efficiency is sort of speaking for itself right now. And the fact that he is able to sort of allow Russ to take over that top spot for, whatever duration of time needs to be done, I think speaks more to the different kind of leadership qualities that he offers this team.
Sure.
But I think in terms of straight up skill and in terms of being a transcendent player and in terms of sort of where they'll finish when their careers are all said and done, I think Durant's the better player. I don't think that there's really that much argument to it, even though Russ is red hot right now.
Right. No, absolutely, Brad. You brought up some good points, and there's not really much argument to it, as you said, but you just want to argue it. So I appreciate that. I will say this. You have a great point, and Mo alluded to it. He said it, 4.3 turnovers a game. He's a risk-reward player in a lot of ways, and Russ, and that is a great argument towards Durant. So listen, I don't think you can go wrong with either player. I think they're both uniquely skilled in so many ways that we haven't seen at the NBA level. So, great conversation on Russ, guys. I'm glad we gave him his due point, but I do want to shift to another topic here. I want to talk about the Hack-a-Shaq, and no one's allowed to call it anything else. It's just Hack-a-Shaq. Don't even try to make up any other terms. There's going to be 300 Hack-a-Shaq situations 300 times by the All-Star break. The record was last year 164. So we're going to see triple this year. Just like we see the rise in three-point shots, we're seeing now the rise of players who can't hit a free throw, missing, being hacked and being sent to the line. Now, Adam Silver recently said that he's going to look into the rules committee during the offseason, and they're probably, he wasn't definitive, and obviously it's not his final call, they're probably going to make changes. At least he's going to propose. Now, here's some proposed solutions to switch the Hack-a-Shaq. You can ban it. I don't know what that means when they said ban it, but that could just mean technical fouls every time it happens. You can give a team the option of a free throw or take it out of bounds. Okay. Maybe one extra free throw attempt by any player for the team that gets fouled. And obviously there's the option, and teams could also only do it a certain amount of time per game. And then you obviously have the option of just not changing it, let it be. Now, one of the people who agree with the not changing it, let it be option is Mark Cuban. He feels that Hack-a-Shaq is more entertainment for the fans. I don't see how that's the case, but we'll get into that. It's a more teachable part of the game, which he said, which I didn't realize NBA games are Sesame Street now, but that's what he said. And he says it's also a chess match, because who doesn't love the fast-paced action of a chess match? So, guys, I want to hear your thoughts on the Hack-a-Shaq. Does it need to be changed? If so, how?
Nope. Doesn't need to be changed. I'm with Mark Cuban on this one, man. You know what? You're just going to force these guys to make a shot, learn how to make a free throw, which is one of the easiest shots in all of basketball. And if they have a problem with that, well, they better get better at it. We've discussed this in the past already. I'm against changing the rules to giving these guys a little bit more leeway who don't know how to make a free throw. They should be able to make a free throw when they're making that kind of money.
All right.
So, that's it. Sorry, you know what? Time's up. I remember off air, you guys were lecturing me that when our 12-minute clock is into, I'm not aggressive enough and strict enough about it. When time is up, time is up. That's how it's going to be going on from now on.
I'm glad you got the last word in.
All right, but I got the last word in. Hopefully, I won't have to do that in the other quarters, and we'll just kind of end at 12 minutes. But let's take a break. When we come back, we have the second quarter of our full court report. Don't go away. Back after this.
Welcome to the initial episode of No Holds Barred with the Dean, Finito Henson. We ask the questions, you get the answers.
Did you feel rough that you didn't get the Best Import Award?
Our Best Import.
If you were the commissioner of the PBA for a day, what would be the first thing you'll do?
I'm not telling you nothing.
Tell us, Leland, last November, when Samboy, your husband, suffered cardiac arrest, What was your feeling? How were you able to cope? And what kind of magnitude of expenses are you facing?
It's not good.
Welcome back to the show. Here it is, our second quarter for the Full Court Report. We're going to be going to, yes, Sydney, Australia, because the rule on our show is white guys go first. So let's go ahead and give it to Brad Graham. Hey, that's what it is. We've acknowledged it, and we're keeping it going. Let's go to Brad. 12 minutes over there in Australia. Brad, what do you got for us, my friend?
Thanks, Mo. You really sort of put me up there on a bit of a tree branch. I'm not sure if the tree branch is going to snap now or it's going to rescue me, but we'll see how this one plays out. Earlier this week, the NBA set up a conference call for Indiana Pacers All-Star Paul George. International media got to jump in, ask a bunch of questions, as they often do. The player's often available for, anywhere between 25, 30 minutes, whatever the case may be. The interesting thing about this particular conference call was that Paul George really didn't seem into it. The media were throwing him softball questions that seemed to put George to sleep. There was a shoot-around going on in the background, which meant a lot of the audio was inaudible on the recording. I don't know if the NBA wants to go back and try this again or what the case may be, but I guess I wanted to bring up the point firstly about how do we feel about some of these NBA All-Stars? I mean, Paul George is super popular, super skilled. He's proven himself as a basketball player. But should the NBA be more careful with which athletes they actually present to the media in a forum like this, given that there are, a number of sort of benefits and obviously losses that could be at play here? How do we feel about certain guys being pushed to the front for media purposes and others sort of, kept in the dark because they're not as articulate or as sort of insightful as some others?
Well, Brad, I've managed to interview and spend some time with Paul George in the past, and he's always been very accommodating and very into the conversations or the interviews, whether it's one-on-one or a scrum. And I'm actually a little surprised that he wasn't into this one. I mean, he's usually good, not just with the local media, but with the international media as well. So maybe it was just I guess his mind was somewhere else. I mean, if he wasn't a shoot-around, maybe he was thinking about the game. But I mean, I do think that the NBA has to, I guess, be more cautious or be more selective when they decide which superstar to present to the media and to the international media, knowing that there are going to be some strange questions, some localized questions that probably these superstars don't really want to answer anyway.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess the thing here is that it wasn't necessarily that he wasn't into it in terms of a energy level. It was more just that he didn't offer the media anything that they didn't either already know, or it wasn't necessarily a case where Paul George was sort of actually able to sort of drive the narrative of his own sort of story forward. And so, everyone asked him about, the broken leg and obviously about his recovery. And the fact that he's been able to get back to all-star status, is a huge feel-good story for the NBA and for Paul George. It's accomplishment on its own. And, part of the call was set up to celebrate that very thing. And yet Paul George sort of never went to any length to sort of describe, exactly the recovery process involved, or maybe he's just sick of talking about it, whatever the case may be. All I'm saying is, from your experience, Jinno, and obviously Mo and Chris, you consume a lot of NBA media coverage. Is this a case where Paul George is a fantastic basketball player, but not necessarily a media personality? And should we expect more or less of players when they're put out on this sort of, in front of the podium?
Well, in fact, it pisses me off when they don't. When they don't give good interviews. I mean, well, it's hard to say what makes a good interview, but one at least they look interested in.
How hard is it? Right. How hard is it?
How difficult it is. It's part of it. You know that if you give a good interview, it reflects better on you and your earning potential outside of the basketball court. All of these things kind of play a role on whether you're accommodating in an interview. If you look at least interested, you might not be articulate, you might not have the vocabulary that certain other players do, but just as long as you kind of be pleasant and look like you're having fun, and you can respect.
George was completely pleasant. I mean, he wasn't blunt or he wasn't cold to anybody. It was more just that the whole interaction seemed a little forced and a little, uncomfortable for me as somebody who's interviewed.
Listen,
and been around
I was listening to NBA radio on Sirius the other day, and they have this program called Year One where they follow a rookie around, and they have Frank Kaminsky. He's the guy that they follow around the entire year.
Frank the Tank.
And in the entire time that he was doing the interview, he was playing Call of Duty on his PlayStation. And you can tell, because it's a radio show, you don't see him, but he's like, so Frank, tell us about the season. And the guy's like, what the hell are you doing? And then he's like, "Oh, sorry, I'm playing Call of Duty." He's been playing Call of Duty for 40 minutes now, the entire program. No wonder he sounds like a
put your bloody
doofus.
controller down, pause your game, and come and give us 5 minutes of your time because you're being paid millions of dollars. Sure,
exactly.
Sure,
So
sure.
same
Well,
thing here with
is,
Paul. I'd like just to kind of concentrate and not be so lazy.
For me, I've never been in the media before, but I'll tell you from a fan's perspective, especially someone like Paul George, I want to see a player from a small market or the player who is the best player in a small market kind of represent that market. I want to learn more about them. I also want to see someone with a human interest story of someone coming back from a major injury and playing like the way he did. So NBA should be looking to push players like that. Doesn't mean everybody, but no, like this. So the next part of it is, what are they doing since NBA is big in marketing, since the Pacers want to market their franchise as well? What are they doing to give Paul George the tools? Since it's in his contract to make himself available to media in certain situations, since it helps the marketing of the team himself and all that stuff, since players, because they're paying millions of dollars, they, in my opinion, owe it to the fans anyway. What side work are they getting to get better with the media? That's the question I have. I don't know, guys. You would know from being in the media. They need that, in my opinion.
I'll give you an example. I mean, who's head of the Pacers right now? Who's in charge?
And what you mean,
Larry Bird? Larry Bird. Okay, so because I'll give you. Larry Bird wasn't exactly a guy who was super warm to the media as well. When he was here in the Philippines, don't get me wrong, I have much respect for this man, but I remember in the finals when they were talking about the ratings of the finals, and he said, "I don't care about the ratings. I'm here to win championships." And then he was here in the Philippines, and we were told from the very beginning.
But don't you want him to be honest? I mean, I guess this is part of it too.
Yeah, I know.
Rather than sort of be false, wouldn't you rather him go, "Look, I really just don't care"?
Yeah. But that's
expand on it.
That's his job. His job is to worry about wins and losses.
Yeah,
not the owner's job.
But I'm just saying that. But because he is kind of like the leader of the Pacers. He is the guy in charge. That might trickle down to the team as well.
But it's also not Bird's job to sort of, I guess, teach George about. George has his own. There's a communications team there for the Pacers, and they do some great work not only in the community but obviously through the Pacers social media, Twitter feed, and obviously through their own website and whatever. Like, the Pacers have always been a great sort of an easy team to deal with when it comes to this stuff. It's more just, I guess, in the broader sense. And Chris, to answer your point, they all get trained, they all get schooled, they all get advised by the NBA, and they all go, especially as rookies, they do it, and then they always have this tool available to them if they're doing interviews, which is why it's sort of so hard to get these players on the phone sometimes. It's because you got to go and get approval from so many people. They ask you for questions in advance. They want to know the topics being discussed. They want to make sure that their player is going to be represented in the best possible light. And
doesn't that make it worse, Brad? Doesn't that make it worse that the questions are in advance?
No, because at the end of the day, you can still ask them what you want in a live recording. It's not like it's
great.
It's not like you necessarily have to go ahead and provide everything for them. It's more that, you just got to let them know that you've got the player's interest at heart, or that it's, going to be a feel-good piece rather than a complete sort of takedown. But I guess, that's fine. And Paul George, in the NBA, and everyone can learn from this particular instance that maybe the next conference call will be better. And, NBA, I know you're listening to this, so, please email me and let me know if I can help and advise you here. But, what's one thing out of it, though?
What's one thing I'd like to see players do is realize that there's kind of reputation here and legacy at stake. Either you're going to be remembered as, I don't know, let's throw like a Pau Gasol nice guy. You're going to be Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who's kind of been labeled as a dick for a long time. There is a personal gain for them there that I think they should hopefully embrace as well. That, being nice to everybody,
you also
including
don't want them to be overly schooled and take away from their personalities. Like, you want Paul George to be who he is. You want him to be who he is first, and not just some corporate sort of schmuck. But what's interesting is when, somebody actually asked him about, him being early in the season in the MVP conversation, and then he responded by saying, if he won more games, and if, the Pacers had been able to close out a lot of the games that he felt they should have closed out, that he would be in the conversation. And of course, he put it all back on himself and said right now he wasn't doing a good enough job, and his performances were down. He said that he's not shooting as well as he'd like to because he's still recovering from the leg injury, and he doesn't have, quite the spring that he wants, and he doesn't have quite the stamina and endurance that he feels he should be having at this point in the season. So he's not satisfied with where he's at. He liked the fact that he started out in the conversation but doesn't believe he's there anymore. As everybody else, I mean, the rest of the panel, Jinno, Mo, Chris, how do we all feel about Paul George? Is he completely taken out of this All-NBA first, second team consideration now?
Well, if if you study Paul George's career, and let's just take his scoring month by month in his career, he always starts off strong. November, for his career, averages 20 a game. December, he then starts to drop 19 a game. January, 16 a game. February, 15 a game.
Or is it him not
March,
figuring it out?
14 a game. By the time April comes around, and this is his career, okay, not healthy career, he's averaging 12 points a game per for the month of April. So there's a huge decline from when Paul George starts the season and how he finishes it.
So you're saying sign Paul George and trade him before the deadline and do this?
Absolutely.
Sell high.
Paul George is like a young man in the bedroom, starts out strong, and then quickly goes limp.
Right. Maybe he needs more muscle. Maybe he needs to do the opposite of what Kyle Lowry did, which was if he wants to finish strong, Lowry lost weight. Maybe Paul needs to gain a little bit of weight, gain a little muscle so he can kind of show a little bit of stamina, because his career numbers, he falls off the table come end of the year, and it starts already immediately. From the first month of the season, he's great, and it's a slow death all the way to the end of the year.
But he's kind of rebounded in some of the postseasons when the Pacers were significant and challenging for the Eastern Conference. I mean, I remember those series against the Miami Heat when he would try and carry the Pacers against LeBron James and the Heat during those times. So yeah, maybe he kind of tails off towards the end of the regular season. But I do remember specifically in maybe like 2 or 3 postseasons where he's picked up his play come playoff time.
Right. Well, how about this? Where do we feel about the Indiana Pacers season being a success, given Paul George's return, given the loss of all the agents, the big men that they had in the offseason? If this team finishes 500, would you declare this a successful year for the Pacers and getting them one step closer back to where they want to be? Or is 500 a failure for them, given that they've got an all-star on this team that's one of the 15 best players in basketball?
Yeah, not in the East. A 500 season, I don't think would be a major success here. I really don't, because they have a either second or third team NBA star on their team. So I would say not a success.
Yeah, but they don't have anybody else. They have Paul George and nothing. Exactly. I mean, they have a over the hill Monte Ellis on that team as the second fiddle. I mean, what can we expect from them?
Obviously,
George,
but nothing, promising.
Nothing there. Nothing really too great of a lineup that they have, and they knew this coming in. They knew that they were in a rebuilding mode. So
just quickly, 500 success, not a success.
Right where they should be.
500, I think, is, I mean, nothing to go crazy about, but I don't think it's a disaster. They have no front court. I mean, man, Mahinmi, Miles Turner, and Jordan Hill, I think is their other dude there. Yeah. That's not going to get it done, man.
Doesn't that automatically take George out of the MVP conversation if his team?
Well, he's not. I mean, the conversation's over for him MVP. That's not even
right. Yeah.
He was in the MVP conversation in the first 2 months of the season.
Yeah, he wasn't.
And that was it.
2 weeks of the season.
2 weeks.
2 months.
Okay.
2 months is a little generous.
2 weeks. Yeah. Maybe the first 2 games, and then we all just sort of woke up to ourselves or something. I mean, who knows? But I guess at the end of the day, look, obviously, back from the injury, he's an all-star now. George is right where he wants to be, but obviously he doesn't have the support cast he wants. So hopefully he gets the support he needs on the court and off the court in the media circles.
Right.
And we look forward to more conversations with Paul down the track.
Okay.
We got to take a break. When we come back, we have our halftime show. You're listening to the Full Court Report. Back after this. Don't go away.
A Sports5.ph original web show.
My name is Dominic Uy, and this is my buddy Kevin Limhoco.
We are going to be testing products to their nth degree, to their limits.
Cars.
How many car makers are not equipped with power steering?
Gadgets.
You feel the value of that watch.
And everything in between.
I don't like to pamper myself except in a restaurant.
This is the web show for the modern man.
Oh, let's go!
Nth degree. Catch it exclusively on Sports5.ph.
All right, guys, welcome back to the Full Court Report. It's our time here, and we're going to spend the next 5 minutes having a little discussion about sidekicks. Now, we talked about Russ Westbrook to open up the show, and because I think he's the sidekick to Kevin Durant, I'm going to take the point here for the halftime and get under Mo's skin as best I can for the next 5 minutes. So I think what's super interesting about sidekicks is they have obviously, a variety of roles to play. I mean, you could say that a running back is a quarterback sidekick. You could say that a hype man to an MC is a hip-hop sidekick. I mean, there's a number of ways to measure these. We've got, the Miami Vice guys. We've got, obviously the cliched one being the Batman and Robin. So let's call this the Robin Award, guys. Who have you got? Who's your Robin? Who is your favorite sidekick? And what, in your eyes, makes them either a quintessential sidekick or just a kick-ass cool, can't go anywhere without this guy sort of by your side? Chris, what have you got? Who have you got in the sidekick realm?
All right. Well, I have from Breaking Bad, Mr. Jesse.
Ooh,
Pinkman.
nice.
Yeah.
Nice,
Just cook
nice,
the meth
nice.
baby and do the catchphrase, yeah, bitch. And that is, I would have to put in modern day, but really quickly. I mean, if we're going back a couple, and even today, but if we're going back a couple decades when he really cemented his legacy, he or she, I don't know what it is, the R2-D2 in a lot of ways is a great sidekick, whether a sidekick to C-3PO or to Luke Skywalker.
True.
He's just a very versatile, or whatever. It is a very versatile sidekick. So I'll go modern day Jesse Pinkman, yeah, bitch, and I'll go R2-D2 as kind of before its time, but in the last couple decades, if you will. Those are my sidekicks.
Okay.
Right. Actually, we didn't specify. We didn't say the sidekick had to be a living organism. So go.
Yes,
D2.
correct.
Yeah, plastic work. Jinno, man, who have you got? Who's always what comes to your mind when you think sidekicks?
I love how Chris and I kind of think along the same ways. But I mean, R2-D2 was a great choice, but my favorite sidekick has to be Chewie. I mean, the way he stands up and he protects Han Solo no matter what. And when Han Solo was killed by his son, sorry, spoiler alert. You know, you felt.
I like how you say spoiler alert after the spoiler. Like,
you dick. I didn't see that.
You felt the pain from Chewie, even though you don't understand what he says. You felt that pain. And I love Chewbacca, and yeah.
Actually, let me hear your best. Let me hear your best Chewie then. Come on. That sucked.
Now, Mo, you must love Chewbacca since your favorite player Paul Gasol looks like him so much and moves and screams like him.
Absolutely.
That's crazy.
My favorite sidekick. I don't know. I don't ever really think about it. So I'm just gonna go ahead and give you the answer that kind of just came out on top of my head first. You know, I don't know if you guys collected Transformers, but one of my favorite Transformer was Soundwave. Right?
Wow.
He was the communications surveillance chief of the Decepticons.
He turned into a stereo.
Yeah, he turned into stereo, and he had that little cassette thing.
Laserbeak or Ravage.
Yeah, Laserbeak was the one where he opened and that little thing came out of his chest and kind of ran around and caused havoc.
So you were saying? Are you saying Soundwave is Megatron? Is Megatron's sidekick? Or are you saying the tape cassettes?
Well, yeah. Soundwave is Megatron's sidekick, but my favorite sidekick is that little stupid whatever the hell that was, a little pet he had going out of his chest.
Laserbeak.
Love that dude, man. Was probably one of my favorite toys of all time.
All right. Look, I have no idea how much time we have left here, so I'm just going to jump in and say that my favorite sidekick has always been Flavor Flav from Public Enemy.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, I love the whole fact that I could go around primary school with a clock hanging around my neck, and everyone thought that I was the coolest kid in the playground. So, love to Flavor Flav. I had to go the hip-hop angle here, but obviously, there's a whole catalog of people that I could have picked from. He just comes to mind. He's the memorable one here. So I think let's do it, man. Let's get back into the second half of the show. Let's not keep people waiting any longer. And
Speaking of sidekick, Klay Thompson, Steph's a little sidekick, just put a dagger 3 on the Thunder. Love it. And they're up by 6. Up by 6 with about a minute left. I know you guys are not going to be. This game will be well over by the time any of you guys listen to this.
Not
but
much of a dagger.
What a dagger by Klay right there. I'll take a break. When we come back, we have our second half of the full court report. Don't go away. Back after this.
Welcome to the initial episode of No Holds Barred with the Dean, Finito Henson. We ask the questions, you get the answers.
Did you feel rough that you didn't get the best import award?
I want best import.
If you were the commissioner of the PBA for a day, what would be the first thing you'd do?
I'm not changing nothing.
Tell us, Leland, last November, when Samboy, your husband, suffered cardiac arrest, what was your feeling? How are you able to cope? And what kind of magnitude of expenses are you facing?
It's not good.
Welcome back to the Full Court Report. It is the second half of our show, and we are going to Metro Manila, Philippines for the third quarter. Talk to Gino Rufino. Gino, you know how it works, man. 12 minutes. It's all yours. What do you got?
Thanks, Mo. I wanted to talk about some some nagging injuries that have been happening in the NBA recently, and two certain players that I want to talk about here. And then the first one I want to talk about will be Jimmy Butler, the most important player on the Chicago Bulls. And why is this important? Firstly, because the Bulls right now, as we speak, they have a record of 27 wins and 23 losses. If they lose 1 or 2 games, they could be out of the playoff picture in the Eastern Conference. So it is a pretty big deal, no matter how much time Butler will be missing. It's rumored that he could miss 1 game, 2 games. They don't really know exactly yet, but he's definitely not going to be playing their next game. We're talking about 22.4 points per game, 5.2 rebounds, 4.3 assists. Now, aside from Butler, the Bulls have already lost for some time Rose, Dunleavy, Powell, and Noah. And quickly though, I want to point out that when Butler fell down, Pau Gasol, who was out with a hand injury, came up to him and in a suit and checking on him and all of that. And I do remember that what Pau said, that he wanted to be a doctor if he wasn't an NBA player. So it was kind of nice to see Pau go to Jimmy Butler in that regard.
What a nice guy.
Was he actually diagnosing him? Did he run him out to the MRI?
I don't know, but he called in a
Can we please, once he retires, can we please get a Pau Gasol reality show where he does become a doctor and we get him to do diagnosis on various things? Because I would tune in to see Pau be a doctor, or at least pretend to be. That would be fun.
For sure. I mean, if he could be one. I mean, that's what he said that he would have been if he wasn't an NBA player. But obviously Jimmy Butler is extremely important to the Chicago Bulls, but they've already suffered some injuries. Noah's gone for the year. Some of these guys have. I know they're getting Mike Dunleavy back, but I mean, let's discuss this. I mean, without some of these guys, how far can the Bulls go? I mean, the Bulls team was supposed to be a top 3 team in the Eastern Conference, but with all of these injuries, they've fallen to number 5. And if they lose, like I said, 2 more games, they could be out of the playoff picture in the Eastern Conference. So, I mean, go ahead.
I hate to say it, but Fred Hoiberg might want to sort of start looking for other job vacancies, because there's no sort of guarantee, I think, that he's going to stay long-term here in Chicago if they can't figure something out. I mean, we know the coach is always the first to get blamed when a team has a sort of dismal season, and maybe this just ends up being somewhat of a lost season for Chicago. The problem is that with Powell and Noah and other players coming up for free agency, Chicago sort of might end up losing more of their weapons and going into next season, obviously, being sort of, I guess, a little weaker than they currently are now if they're at full strength, which they haven't been, obviously, as you said, for some time. So, look, the Bulls have to figure things out. I mean, they've got, Bobby Portis and Taj Gibson and, capable players. I think Rose is coming on stronger and sort of regaining a little bit of form, which is nice to see. I mean, they're still deep and talented, but the NBA is one of those, cases of if you can't stay healthy, you just can't compete. And right now they can't stay healthy. Therefore, nobody can expect anything of them. I mean, if they're not at full strength, they don't deserve to be in the second round of the playoffs, because nobody wants to watch that series with a limping Bulls team, whatever. I mean, they're a bull without horns right now. And until they get them back, they've got a really, really, really low ceiling. And that's just the reality for Bulls fans.
No one wants to see a playoff series with a limping Bulls team. That seems to become commonplace over the last couple of years. I've said it before on the show. Fred Hoiberg's going to lose his job. There's just been no rhythm with this Bulls team, and it doesn't seem like they're on the same page. Losing Jimmy Butler is just going to make it worse. The front office will not let him get off with that excuse, because it wasn't on the same page before Jimmy Butler.
How long is Powell out, though? How long till we can expect Powell back?
I think they're just it's a precautionary thing with Powell.
So both Powell and Butler are day-to-day. Is that what you're saying?
Sure.
So they're being just judged on their whatever. So, look, if Powell and Jimmy come back and they're at full strength again, look, this Bulls team could still climb to number 3 in the East. It's not out of the question. They're not a complete write-off this year. But look, the likelihood is unlikely. Atlanta and Boston are playing well enough now to sort of keep them at bay. But Chicago might end up being a difficult first-round matchup for a lot of teams, and they do sort of play, great basketball at times. And ultimately, this just seems.
At times, can they play it for a 7-game series? I don't think they can. I don't think they can.
They probably can't, which is why they're 5th right now. They can't keep it together for any extended length of time. So this Bulls team, like I said, very, very low ceiling, and they should be in the contender conversation, and they're not. And they've got to sort of now start to assess what really that is that they want to do with not only their chemistry issues, but their coaching situation. And then, these free agents that are, on the horizon. The situation in Chicago is not pretty. I will say that. It's You know,
I
do not want to be a Bulls
I'm
fan
optimistic.
Right now.
Listen, it's not pretty. You're right, and all your points, all you guys are good points, but. You know, I'm a little bit more optimistic about the Bulls. I think they're the talent, the depth, the mix of veterans and young guys. It's going to kind of play in their favor. I think their biggest problem here, obviously, is the change in coaching, the change in system, the change in kind of outlook. But they're still good enough, talent-wise, and again, that nice little mix of young players and veterans that can kind of help out when somebody does get hurt. I'm optimistic about this team still finishing top three.
Looking at where the NBA is right now, Butler's going to go away All-Star weekend. They're going to get some rest, which I think is going to really, really help this team. Getting Dunleavy back is going to be a big bonus for them. But in the home sort of stretch, it looks like Toronto and Cleveland are really pushing away from the rest of the competition. You know, so it seems like Chicago's new ceiling was downgraded from 2 to 3, but do you really think Atlanta and Boston are going to sort of somehow lose enough games to let Chicago make up that ground?
Don't forget the Heat.
All I'm saying is the Bulls are talented enough to still finish third in the East. Okay. I wouldn't be surprised if they do.
Right? Like, that's what I'm saying.
At this point, yes. At this point in the season, absolutely. I mean, I never had them going number 1 anyway. Number 2 perhaps was the best they were going to do. So now they're down to number 3. They could finish 8th. I mean, who knows, right? But again, this is a team that's very talented, very deep. Jimmy Butler is emerging every year. He's just getting better and better. He's one of the best defenders in the NBA, as well as offensive game is skyrocketing. When you got a player like that, Powell, all-star caliber player. I mean, you know, they just got to get on the right page. I keep saying that when it comes to this Chicago Bulls team because the tools are there. They just got to put it together.
Well, 2-3 weeks ago we talked about the Cleveland, Toronto, and Chicago being, you know, the 3 teams that are a class above itself in the East. Well, now it's Toronto and Cleveland, and Chicago's falling off, and we keep on saying tools. This, what could they? What could they? They're not doing it. They're not doing it. And even if they are healthy, there's always something with this team. As I said before, Brad said they could be a dangerous team in the playoffs. Okay, but I don't know. I don't think they can be strong over a 7 game series.
On paper, they look good, but I mean, if it's not health, it's chemistry issues. So I mean, I don't know where to sit with the Bulls.
You have to always, with Chicago, finish them by saying they're a dangerous team, maybe.
All right.
If you do that.
I want to talk about another injury that happened, and this one he's going to be out for about a month because he had to go under surgery to address a testicular injury.
Oh, you got to watch out for that.
Very interesting. I'm talking about Manu Ginobili of the San Antonio Spurs. Obviously, if there is a weakness with a Spurs team, it is probably their shooting guard position. And with Manu out, and you know, coming off the bench, he's been averaging about 10 points per game. I mean, I know that they still have been pretty good with him not playing that great. Mo, you pointed out to me off air that they have more double-digit wins than the Clippers have wins. And in fact, they lead the league in point differential. So I mean, with Manu out and Tim Duncan coming back from an injury, I mean, the Spurs haven't looked like the Spurs. I mean, I know they went on that nice winning streak.
Let me just jump in here and say we know the Thunder is on the rise, and I really, really do believe that the Thunder, even though their record might not suggest it right now, are the West's second best team. I'm losing faith in this Spurs organization to get it done this year. I think Aldridge isn't quite where he needs to be. I think Tony Parker's been great, but I do think there's real deficiency at the shooting guard spot. And I think that doesn't help them over a 7-game series. I don't know if you can rely on Patty Mills and Simmons as the backups to get it done night in and night out. You know, obviously they've got Kawhi playing at an exceptional level, but if Duncan's missing games or if you're getting into foul trouble with David West, then I just think they really need to have all the guys on the same page and all firing on all cylinders. Otherwise, I really do think that this team I'm going to downgrade their ceiling to number 3. I don't think they're the best second best team anymore.
Wow.
We're hitting a panic button on a team with an 84% win percentage.
Wow. But you know what's interesting to me is that in past seasons, when a major piece of the Spurs go down, they just plug somebody in there and it kind of still works.
Exactly. That's why we shouldn't worry about it at all. We shouldn't worry about it.
Go ahead.
So how are you going to rejig this lineup? How are you going to cover for Manu? Who can you possibly put in there? Unless they're going to go.
Manu's not one of their top 4 players. He'd be you plug somebody in.
Well, first of all, no one has faith in Danny Green. What's wrong with Danny Green? Just joking. The bottom line, you can't ever count out Popovich and the Spurs, ever. The minute you do it, they just come back and they smack you around. Yeah. The minute they do it, and then they're going to go on another 11-game winning streak. I don't think the Manu Ginobili thing is that big of a deal. I do agree with Gino. The 2 spot has been kind of weak this year. They'll find a way to make up for other deficiencies. It's Popovich and the Spurs. It's like, every year. It's like Christmas. It's going to come every year.
84% winning percentage, 8-2 in the last 10, and they already have a 4-game winning streak going on. I don't even know why.
13-point differential.
That's right. Amazing. Which I thought probably one of the highest of all time, if not the. So, we need to relax a little bit. Yes, these injuries are huge, but it's not a Kawhi injury. It's not a LaMarcus injury, or maybe to even a certain extent a Tony Parker one. Sure. Manu, someone else is going to be plugged in. He'll do just fine. They're not going to miss them. It'd be nice if they come in full strength though when the playoffs start, and so we can really see the magic that the Spurs can kind of bring.
Can Danny Green right the ship? I mean,
no. He's the one who can't. No.
If Danny Green just finds some sort of rhythm, then we wouldn't even be discussing who would fill in.
He can go from one of the worst shooting guards in the league to just a little less in middle of the pack, then maybe, because that's what it is. Right
if Danny Green can show up and start shooting the way JJ Redick is, then it's a different story.
But then we're talking about world beaters there, but that just ain't gonna happen.
I can't figure out Danny Green this season. I really don't. What's going on?
I don't think Popovich can either. So you're not alone, Gino.
All right. Well, thank you very much, guys. And good conversation between the injuries to the Spurs and of course to the Bulls and what we can expect from the 2 teams as well.
They continue to be undefeated at home. So props, Mo Twist's favorite team. They close out so you'll know when the show's taped tomorrow. But we just found out they won by 6. Yeah. Good job, Warriors. Good job, Dubs.
All right.
Let's take a break. When we come back, fourth quarter, it's the full court report back after this.
A Sports5.ph original web show.
My name is Dominic Uy, and this is my buddy Kevin Limhoco.
We are going to be testing products to their nth degree, to their limits.
Cars.
How many car makers are not equipped with power steering?
Gadgets.
You feel the value of that watch.
And everything in between.
I don't like to pamper myself except in a restaurant.
This is the web show for the modern man.
Oh, let's go!
Nth degree. Catch it exclusively on Sports5.ph.
All right, welcome back to the Full Court Report. It is the fourth quarter, my quarter, as I seem to have every week here. 12 minutes on the clock, and let's get to it. One of the more followed pieces on ESPN is their NBA, all-time rank? They're ranking the NBA players. The hashtag is NBA rank. So they're now up to the top 10. They have not released who the top 10 are. We'll get to that in a sec here, but there's kind of one name that I wanted to throw out there that landed at number 12, and it's Kobe Bryant. Now, the reason why I'm choosing to bring this up is because I always I have this kind of weird, I don't know, I've been noticing how people rank Kobe Bryant, and I find it a little rangy. Sometimes you'll come across a population of people that would put Kobe as maybe top 5 best player of all time, and then you come across a group of people that say, no way, he might even be 20, in that area. ESPN here has him at 12. I know I was listening to an interview with Minnesota head coach Sam Mitchell, same coach that Kobe dropped 81 on, and then, of course, 38 the other week, which was kind of a vintage Kobe performance, and he said, man, we're looking at a top 3 best player of all time in Kobe Bryant. I'm like, wow.
Whoa.
I mean, man, talk about, high praise. So I want to ask you guys, why is it that Kobe Bryant is so hard to define in terms of ranking and legacy when his career is essentially over, as we know he's going to be gone this year? What's all this drama, this inability to put his place among the greatest? Because Chris, the numbers are there.
We better turn our mics off, Chris, because I think Gino wants the next 10 minutes.
Yeah. All right. Well, you know what, Mo, we were talking about this off air.
Sure.
Part of it is because he's just a very polarizing figure. There's a lot of people out there that just don't like him. There's a lot of people out there that think that he's too much of a ball hog and just doesn't, and they don't realize that he's also one of the leaders of the Lakers in assists. So it's just one of those things. I mean, it's a very subjective thing when you think about who are the greatest of all time, and you compare different eras of the NBA. I know as fans and as people who write about and follow the league, it's interesting to do, but it's just so difficult to compare different eras and to put Kobe at number 12. You can make
Is
a
that
case
a crime for you?
No, no, it's not a crime because you can make a case for it. I mean, there's so many centers out there. If you include the centers in the list,
Jinno sounds bitterly disappointed. Let me just say this: Kobe came into the NBA super cocky, and that rubbed people the wrong way. Then he developed chemistry with Shaq, and all of a sudden everyone thought we were going to witness one of the best tandems ever. Then he had the Colorado court trial, and again, he got offside with the general public. Then he came back and really sort of complained about his strength of his teammates. He refused to pass in the playoffs. You know, he made the Pau Gasol trade happen because he was unhappy. He threw his teammates under a bus. Then he comes back, wins MVP, even though he probably shouldn't have that particular year. You know, he scores 35, he gets the 81. You know, his career's been so all over the place that if you were to draw a little matrix of exactly where Kobe fits, he fits everywhere. Yeah. And the other thing that really, really prevents Kobe from being placed accurately is that everything he's done has been in the shadow of Michael Jordan, so we don't know what to think of him. We don't know how to deal with him because we've never seen a photocopy this accurate, a duplicate done this well before. And those first 3 titles, he was a sidekick. The last 2 he won, and arguably one of them should have gone to the Celtics if it hadn't have been for the injury to Perkins and all that, but that's argumentative based on performance in the case and whatever at the time. So Kobe's had a lot of things break in his favor, but he's also had a lot of things go against him. His popularity globally has been different to his popularity domestically, and so we continually wrestle with Kobe because he's...
It does sound like, though, okay, these arguments you're giving, Brad, sounds like then he's underrated. Because, I mean, the hardware is there, the 5 titles, but you're like, but maybe he was a psychic. But still, it's still 5 titles, though.
He occupies a space where there is no precedent for how to measure him. Like, that's the difficulty.
But if you're saying he's a copy, again, I'm not a Kobe fan, I gotta be clear, but if you're saying he's as closest to Michael Jordan as we've ever seen, how come he's not in the top 10? He's a 9-time NBA all-defensive first-team player. So the defense has been there. The offense, third all-time?
Overrated, underrated. That's part of the polarization. That in some ways he can be overrated, some underrated. He was compared to be the next Michael Jordan. Guess what? He never got there. He never came close, though he might be the closest.
Never came close.
Wow.
Never came close. That's pretty bold.
You listen. You listen to some of the testimonials that these the current NBA players have been saying with Kobe going out.
It's not just us saying it.
He is this generation's Michael Jordan. I mean,
his peers call him the closest thing to Jordan.
His peers say that.
So ridiculous to me.
His
because
peers.
You're the closest to Michael Jordan doesn't mean you're anywhere near him. Doesn't mean you're anywhere near him just because you're the closest. He is not Michael Jordan.
No. He's near, and I'll tell you why. There's so many of these. This is the next Michael Jordan to come out, and this might be the baby Jordan. All of that. He's the one that's gotten the closest near Michael with all of those other names.
There's a difference.
Okay, what is missing? What is missing in Kobe? Okay, let me ask you a question. What is missing? What is missing in Kobe's resume that still gets him really far away from Michael Jordan?
Okay, you asked the question. Not anywhere near the scoring efficiency of Michael Jordan, number 1, or scoring overall, number 1. Didn't lead 6 championships. Was
third all time.
Number 1 guy in 2, and maybe the number 1 guy in 1 other.
What? Points per game. 5
titles. We'll say 5 and 6 squared up, fine, close enough. But 3 of them was Shaq as the guy. Michael Jordan, number 1 every single time. Michael Jordan can win the game way more than Kobe could in so many different ways. More athletic early in his career than Kobe. Then one of the smarter guys in the NBA ever towards the end. He was the best
Mo, the other thing too is here. Look, to come back to your original point, Mo, the reason he's number 12 and not higher is we don't know where to put Kobe, and it's difficult to put him in the top 10 because all the guys that are ahead of him don't actually have anyone else that is quite like them. Whereas Kobe in build and in makeup and in discipline and in play and in aggression and in approach and in all the things that we've talked about, sure, he doesn't have the trophies that Mike's got in the same way that Mike got them, but we don't have anyone else this high on the list that's so close to someone else also on the list. I mean, you can make arguments that Shaq and Wilt are equally dominant as big men, but their games weren't similar in any real way, other than the fact that they both played 6 feet from the hoop and dunked a lot. So the fact that Kobe looks and plays and reminds us so much of Michael, and that's very intentional because Kobe's always been, out to sort of make his path, following the footsteps of Michael. That's why we're left wondering how to actually gauge Kobe. And you're right. There's a portion of the population that says because of how closely he followed Michael, he followed him so closely he could sniff his farts, and maybe that was true. But the case is that helps him rank top 5. Now, if you think that because you copied someone and didn't create your own path, that's detrimental, and that's the other way to look at the coin, then you do bump him outside of the 10 and say the closest you can get is orbiting Mike.
But that's only that. Listen, your argument's only if we are in that mindset of comparing him to Michael individually,
that's
though.
The only person you can compare him to, because
right. But why do we have to compare? You're the first guy that says why do we have to compare? Can't they just be their own dude? And listen, the hardware.
No, ESPN just isn't like Kobe Bryant.
Listen, time out.
Maybe you don't like Kobe Bryant. You haven't made a strong argument of why he's not in the top 10.
I will say this.
He's in the top 10 for me easily.
He's in the top 10. I didn't hear those words come out of your mouth. I heard, it's arguable he could be on the 12.
You asked why he's polarizing. I answered that. So let me tell you from my perspective of what I think. Yes, you could argue he's better than Oscar Robertson. You can even argue he's better than Kim Olajuwon. After that is Duncan and Shaq based on my top 10. Okay, it's really close, but Duncan, I think, has pulled ahead, and Shaq and him might be a coin toss too. So maybe you can argue Kobe's 10 at best, and if you really stretch it, 9, so 12, but I'm never going to put Kobe in the top 5 or 6 or 7. That's where I'm coming from. You asked why he was polarizing before, and I gave you the reason, and it was the Michael Jordan comparison that I didn't put on him, most of the world did.
Well, again, Chris, Kobe told us to compare him to Mike because that's who he was following. So
exactly,
closely.
That's another point. Yes, Brad, perfect.
Yeah, because he wanted to be the best. He wanted to try and get there. Of course, he didn't. But I mean, he got fairly close. He got fairly close in terms of how many championships that he got, and he copied his moves. He's come the closest to Michael Jordan. And because of that, and if Jordan is still the GOAT, he is in the top 10 easily.
I don't like all of this. I don't know all this Michael Jordan talk. We're talking about Kobe here.
You can't have the Kobe Bryant discussion without Michael Jordan coming up.
I disagree.
Bro, you disagree with what's happening right now. You can't have 4 people in a room or 6 people or 3 people without Michael Jordan coming up on a Kobe Bryant conversation. It's impossible.
That's because everything that comes out of your mouth is old school this and old school that. Listen, the hardware is there. The hardware is there, right?
Not quite. It's a step below.
No. I'm not quite to be in the top 10. Really? No, the hardware ain't there for him to make it in the top 10.
I said personally he could be in the top 10.
Fringe of the 10. Fringe of the 10 for sure. Fringe of the 10. 12.
Exactly.
Fringe of the 10.
Mo, where are you putting him?
Hell is going on here?
LeBron and Bird?
Oh, but listen, I listen. Your boner for LeBron has been well documented here, but absolutely, I'll tell you this. Okay, we're here. Kobe Bryant on top of LeBron James. I'm sorry.
Yes, I agree. Okay. Currently on top of LeBron James. Currently,
absolutely.
Tim Duncan.
He's ahead of Tim Duncan for me.
Can I throw some?
Hang on, Mo. You need to get the crowd under control again. This is getting out of
all right. Judge says, "Hey, relax, everybody." You know what? Let's not fight. We're friends. We're brothers in different countries. Let's just move away from this topic. Okay, because I feel like we're just going to end up hating each other. Maybe not have an episode next week, and it's all-star already. All right, how about this? Let's do this. Okay, we already know which 10 players are going to be on ESPN's top 10, okay? It's going to be, let's see. Yeah, it's going to be Jordan. It's going to be Magic. It's going to be Hakeem, Duncan, Chamberlain, O'Neal, Bird, Jabbar, Russell. That's the 10 that's going to be. They have not given out what the order is going to be, so why don't we go ahead and do this. You guys, prior to the show, I asked you, give me your top 10 based on who's left on ESPN's top 10 and where you rank them. Now, I'm not going to give the rankings so we don't have enough time of each and every one of you. I'm just going to give some notable ones here, and I want you guys either defend it, explain it, and if we don't agree with you, we'll go ahead and say it. So, Brad, let's start with you. You had Wilt Chamberlain at number 10 on the top 10 of all time. Wilt Chamberlain, number 10. And if we're talking records and hardware, boy, Wilt's got a bunch of them. What's going on here with Wilt at number 10, please?
Okay, so the reason Wilt is at number 10 on my list is because Wilt is the cutoff guy. Unless you can put up he had inflated numbers because of the era in which he played, but he was a trendsetter. He's important, and Wilt is the cutoff. You have to have a resume that's, in some shape, way, or form able to compare or compete with Wilt's in order to get, inside the 10. And I think Wilt is the distinction between top 10 and then everyone else on the list being, what was it, Jerry West, Kobe, Oscar, all these guys. So, Wilt for me is the cutoff guy, and he didn't win enough titles for me to rank him higher. He had the personal numbers, but I also know that he wasn't as committed and fiery and competitive as I want a guy to be. So 10 is the best I can do for Wilt.
We got to call timeout here because I haven't asked Jinno and Chris. Jinno, real quick, just a second ago you said Kobe over Tim Duncan, yet you have Tim Duncan number 5 all time. Yeah. Explain.
What?
Yep. Because when you look at the list look at the list that ESPN has, I had to put Tim Duncan there specifically because of not just what he's done to the game and what he's done for his team, but also the number of titles they've won. That's why the only people I have in front of him are the people who have multiple titles as well: Jordan, Bill Russell, Magic Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So I base it not just on stats. I based my list not just on statistics, but also a mixture of statistics, what they've done for the game, and of course the number of championships they have.
But it's also not singles tennis. So to give all those titles to Duncan is kind of a little bit of a misnomer in terms of...
Yes. But he was also, you can argue that he was the main man for all the titles. Maybe except for one or two.
Absolutely. I know we got to finish things up.
We got to go.
Sorry, Manu.
I'm going with Chris as the third because his is the safest. I think most agreeable. If you threw this out there to the public, I think they would agree with his list most. So let me just go say Kareem Abdul-Jabbar number 2. Real quick, you had Jordan, Jabbar, Johnson, Magic, Chamberlain, Russell, James, Bird, O'Neal, Duncan, Olajuwon. Why Kareem at number 2?
Kareem number 2, unbelievably the most disrespected, underrated players of all the great ones of all time. Had a very, very dominant career. The first half of his career, played on a losing team early on, won a title. I know some of it was before the ABA merger, but even after that, he won five MVPs that way. And then had a second stanza of his career, which lasted another 10 years, winning titles with Magic Johnson, being at first the number 1 guy on that team, another MVP, and being one of the greatest number 2 guys through a 5-title process, 6 overall. 6 MVPs, scoring leader, huge
quick question. So we got to go. So was it close between Kareem and Wilt, or not that close between? Because you have Magic sandwiched between the both of them.
I have Magic third. Between Kareem and Magic is very close, and MJ still is number 1 to me.
Gotcha. All right, we got to get out of here. Let's take a break. When we come back, are we doing an overtime, gentlemen, or what?
Yeah, a quick one. Let's do a quick one.
All right, cool. So we'll do a quick overtime right after this. Don't go away. Full court report.
Welcome to the initial episode of No Holds Barred with the Dean, Jinno Henson. We ask the questions, you get the answers.
Did you feel rough that you didn't get the best import award?
I won best import.
If you were the commissioner of the PBA for a day, what would be the first thing you'd do?
I'm not telling you nothing.
Tell us, Leland, last November, when Samboy, your husband, suffered cardiac arrest, what was your feeling? How were you able to cope? And what kind of magnitude of expenses are you facing?
It's not good.
All right, welcome back to the Full Court Report. It is the overtime segment of our show where we will take a few minutes here to discuss, of course, one of the biggest days of the year around the world, especially in America, which is Super Bowl Sunday happening tomorrow. Now, you go anywhere and people's gonna.
Is it okay if I only watch the ads and I don't watch the game? Is that cool?
I'm only watching Coldplay at halftime. I could care less about this game, but you know what? We still need to talk about it because. All right. So, while I'm sure there's a game going on after all this Coldplay stuff, where are you guys on the winner? This is a classic question that's going to be thrown out all morning long tomorrow. Who do you have tomorrow for the big game? Chris, I'll go to you last because I know that football means more to you than anyone else here on the show. Let's start with you, Jinno. Who do you got, Denver or Charlotte?
Well, I'm picking Denver. Only because of one reason, and it's not football related at all, but because my friend's brother plays for the team. That's it.
Pretty good call.
That's the only thing.
Well, that sounds like inside information right there. Let's gamble.
What do you got? I need to get a good gambling going on.
Yeah. What else can you tell us?
Jordan Norwood.
Oh,
Yeah, I was going to say, it's Gabe's brother?
Yeah, Gabe's brother.
Yeah, that's right. He plays for them. Yeah,
props to
good
Gabe
stuff.
Norwood.
Let's go to Brad. Brad, what do you think here? This is the puss version of rugby. What do you got?
Yeah, that's right.
That's true.
You guys wear helmets for some reason. I can't work that out. Then you pretend you're battering rams and think that you're never going to get hurt. It's really crazy.
Right. Exactly.
So let me just say I'm going to pick Carolina Panthers because I think that's the new generation's kicking in now, and I think the old guys should step aside. Plus, the last time Peyton Manning was in the Super Bowl, I really wasn't impressed with his performance. It looked shell-shocked, and I'm just not sure that as good as this Denver defense is, it can stop Cam Newton from getting what he needs to get done.
That's a lot of analysis from you. I'm surprised. Man, you knew the players. You knew a little bit of history. Good on you, Brad. Chris, Denver or Carolina? What's up?
I'll preface it by saying that I do want the Broncos to win because I do want to see Peyton Manning ride off in the sunset as a champion. He had a lot of these years where he couldn't win it when he was the best player in the game, yet he had no defense. This year he finally has the best defense in the league, though he's a shell of himself. However, the Panthers are favored for a reason. It's going to come down to the Panthers running game versus the Broncos defense, and I think the Panthers running game will push the Broncos defense a little bit back and win the game.
Sure. All right. You know what? Again, I think the football gods will find a way. That means refs will find a way to get Peyton Manning here. Another
Roger
ring
Goodell's
before.
going to control the outcome. Roger Goodell's going to have puppet strings at the top of the stadium.
Probably. I mean, the narrative is great. It's a changing of the guard, and out with the old, in with the new. And I think before the old goes out, kind of like Kobe in the All-Star game, Peyton is going to get a ring just because people are going to make it happen.
No, remember too, Steph Curry promised wins for the Warriors and the Panthers this weekend.
Screw Steph. He blows. That's right.
Steph.
Yeah, he sucks, Steph. But yeah, so I probably want the Broncos to win. I think the Panthers are going to pull it off just because they're probably a better team. But who knows? Coldplay at halftime show. That's what it's all about. Let's go around the room real quick and give our social media accounts or anything else we want to plug, and we'll get out of here. How about you, Chris, in New York? What do you got first?
As always, on Twitter, @NotBillWalton, and that Twitter feed is as close to MJ as anything one's ever become. Unfortunately, it's still not close.
Brad, what do you have?
You can follow me on Twitter at @BackpackBaller. You can try to shoot down my Wilt selection at number 10. I look forward to those debates. You know what, Mo? Maybe I'll reveal the rest of my 10 in the coming days, but who knows? We'll see how the backlash goes over Wilt first, then I might just crawl into a shell and go away.
Sure. And you can follow me. Oh, sorry, Jinno, you go first, and I'll go last. Go ahead.
It's @GinoRfino on Twitter and on Instagram, and of course, you can let me know if you think that Kobe Bryant should be in the top 10 of all time. And I'm looking forward to meeting Chris and Brad for the first time in Toronto come the All-Star weekend. I don't know, maybe we won't speak to each other because you both think that Kobe doesn't belong in the top 10.
I don't think top 5.
The beautiful thing is we can each take a turn asking Kobe, does he think he's in the top 10?
That's sweet.
But Chris and I will enjoy this one though. The Warriors beat the Thunder 116-108, and the spread was 7.5. Interesting.
Love it.
Interesting.
All right. Our next episode, all of these guys are going to be in the U.S., if I'm not mistaken, right? So watch out for that.
Canada.
Well, Canada, technically, yeah. North
I
America.
thought we were going to be on Wednesday. Everybody's still in the U.S. You be in New York.
Good point. Yeah, good point.
Right. Yeah, and then what's this? Gino's going to be in Dallas, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll see you guys when all of us are in the United States. It's not going to be the four guys in four continents. Sorry, what?
Gino will be live from Mark Cuban's house.
Yeah.
That's right. That's right. Man, let's get out of here. Have a good day, everyone. Thanks for the downloads. Don't forget to interact with us at Full Court Report on Twitter as well. Have a good night, and we'll see you at All-Star Weekend. Bye, guys.